sonam je ndola benje sanje ndola sanje jedam soje sonam la sanjo pardo dane japsanje Ave jenso jebe sonam je ndola benje sanje ndola Sanje jedam soje sonam la sanjo pardo dane japsanje Ave jenso jebe sonam je ndola benje sanje ndola From now until enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and by the merit creating this practice, may I attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. From now until enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and by the merit creating this practice, may I attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. From now until enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha, and by the merit created this practice, I attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Oda kızan dinin pa kercecuna ta niba yülgin döçüldeni ta yülde yülceniydi yülde la zembanyiydi to 용도와 zembanyi kiche eni chi runga yurunga tegitire eni tegiteta ma tunda omani sonde tanda pordo tuschini yondere eni chi palcher naven rathayada migi hagi yulzungya to kandisi zungu yeme yulchena tsu leyongure oda inde yulde yulchengi 개발돼 즉 남배 투모 yulde다 남배 투모에 개차요 말에 바제 생리보다 투모 차디어래 미몽보지다 때 줄로 몽보지 투모래 되어래 다 가래 차거잖아 yulchen인데 인도도 수능도 가라 오네다 즉 생리배 많이 봐지 다 남배 점된데 봐 때는 밥사죠 어떻게 오네 number shiba singita one ji chadi ora watati indugala shibe namrante so chik samlota da mado chi age gyan chelda tendege chesuya ke yo mare odang shiba suzuki le yedi yorde suzuki ki shiba de rang ge cheba chidi gala chik age samlo nembuta nendenda ipada number magona ni shibe kebrshiyal pe khabotoa 어떻게 좀 빼면서가 개 첨보래 공부하고 양이 양도 상담 공부하고 배게 첨보래 니 시벨라 양니 시벨 남자 망보 아니 시바 거기 예 가르쳐왔다 조선당 심중당 근데 마음 남자 망보지가 있나 이거 나니 아니 심중나나 답에 로 출류 왕도 손대네 롤 제발 출시만 보지 보다 연구하래 디기다 맞아 동al 때 되어래 에 제발 던진이잖아 강라 캡틴 세마요네 엔직 율레 밀로에 있는데 데레 제발 세마스 거래 아니 데라 쟁이 너바 주고 말해 보다 제발 춘대근데도 로 튼튼지 제발 튼튼지 레연도 콜은 너바주고 와래 너바주디 captain samayo 용인들이 captain sama메가는 너용고 와라 어떻게 인도가 랑기 가기 심지제바이나 고하고에 차되어 어떻게 인도가 즉 일찍 개발돼서 즉 배전디 sama인 바 점반에 따지 남라마 보이 여사된데 주리야나 지내야 보여래 어떤 대나네 다 나랑주 간데 가기 둔타 생데 코 가래고는 자거서는 따외가는 자용 거래 따외가는 자용도 갈라 따와티 바기 가서래 지지기 유전데라 아니 이기 남시다 다 바기 윤제된 로디 갈라 세고라 세용도 갈라 다 둔다 소속이 바기 다조 다당 josul mandaji benani tuta koma dade beni inchela igi namshe kansa ke bala jaya ta oda tindi indugala da senzamba ina kunshi namshe lungi jena ina senzamba ina igi namshe oda di jagris skan sonsong oda tegidi pagi ne bache wada ke chambores oda tindi indugala kunshi singde kandi sigi yome lung the tema den kunji mandib lung ma den rwa sem thamore igi nam chele shira thar chimbare oda mandib lung ma den singe oda te jabala digi ya tage dib lung ma den na ni oda te jo kisan thar khashi ji thar oda te gi ke bar to jo kengwa da ke chimbare yulchen ten jire teni ta tage lamgi mi pa de yongure ani
we are on mind-only schools philosophy or concept, and what we covered last time was the basis of the tenet or assertions on the basis, and on the assertion on the basis, we see they're categorized into two parts: object and object possessor. And the object, this is sort of common with most of the schools, true truth, and then also they, have 5 aggregates or senses. So, and this, the object, when we, object and subject, the object part are mostly sort of exist in other religion or faith too, not only unique to Buddhism. But when we talk about subject, consciousness, mind, then we talk more about unique Buddhist interpretation or assertion, because we are talking about something which is, couldn't be findable under modern scientific tools like microscope or telescope. So, but we all know that consciousness does exist, because of our own experiences. And the consciousness, when you look back into the different schools, we see different levels of consciousnesses, and when we learn about the consciousness, as we said before, to learn about consciousness, what we need to know is what is the the target of the particular consciousness. What is the nature of that consciousness when it is aiming at that target. So it's important kind of think over these things when we think about or learn about consciousness. And also about consciousness, we discussed before about mistaken consciousness and meaningful consciousness. The mistaken consciousness refers to the sense of apprehension or perception which doesn't accord with the reality. But the meaningful is, when you have a appropriate understanding of the object by the subject, because meaningful or non-mistaken is based on what we call valid cognition. So when you have a non-mistaken understanding or consciousness, and this will directly contradict to the mistaken consciousness that you had before. So about consciousness, you can look at other Buddhist text translations, or do other readings that should be helpful to further kind of understanding about consciousness. And when we talk about tenets, or philosophy, we also need to think about why and what are the different kind of basis of these different school of thoughts. Why different schools? So when we look at that, different school came to being because of different assertions. For example, regarding what is self and what is I. We discussed this before. Different school has a different interpretation of what is I. For example, school higher than Sutra, school they interpret mental consciousness as a self or I, and within the mind-only school there are different interpretations. But one example would be mind-only school, which based on scriptures, they come up with what is called mind basis of all, which is much subtler than the mental consciousness. And if you remember, they define that mind basis of all as non-obscured, neutral mind. And then there's also afflicted mind, if you remember. So what is important here is try to have some information or understanding about what is consciousness and or self, and how different school of thoughts interpret based on their own kind of assertions.
Dala thoma yume, tama yume, dindi kachi kamay nang duwazi. Tinguni nenga yu chimbu yore. Chumdene majong kunla, Hindu bichulu mambu jini, da de tseche tang, da de, da meba de totu yomare. Da majana, gyuni mindi kinji kunso, rikbe tsalgi, manyo bichini. Ini da de yuwaji. Da de yuwanani, ini pe Ninjik pe tapa, jiya gyun me pe tapa na ho, cham me pe chipu, ti chashi chaya me pe chajan rezi, jiran chik ene pe cham me pe chipu rezi, je suyo pe ribu rezi, oda dus chene raa kibar sumden ji jagadwa, chiro pe. Ti indi kala, ta chiro pa kiwa nga chi khelengin tuzo, edin tendawe Kiji sumden daatela, Hindu nala atma zade. Tape tui namyang, kewa nga jin rondengi ji imbala, tape ngole jaatu kuwara. Ten galdu chimbo shiwi shaadi yore. Wate tendi ji shaawade ribe tsangli manyo bari. Chini, mara chini, daa meba di kao, daa meba da mata wangiri. Taa tenda wate, nampe tunda oma tegiti karja kuwara. Daa singindi, ngone pagi Sejita hindu kala, da phumpu so, phumpu da janani, phumpu nga yoyana, da nga re tu. Ni phumpu lo ngo thate tu jamashi. Dus chidi kala, nambe tukde nala, ni da phumpu da ngo chi rebe, jetu me. Ngo thate rebe, jetu me se, jome da ke lingi, nangpa chungtuwa. Tela, ribi tsaki manyo barwa. Tini yaa chini, tunta karas, ne mabu baba imbe, tunta Jeta maa tendegi, ini pagi da jaya de, pumpu nga yun la jaya dang, tende yungu tuwa. Wata tende indigala, da jaya thangde pe rimba mangpu le yungu tuwa. Tete indigala, chik ngaranzu ina, chik susu, pagi ni peche na da de jaya de, te yimbare zaza ma yimba. Ngone samlo tani, Da singdi yuni yorwa, tande pena tanang hayan su nga nagin du se nga de la karja wa nga nagi du se de lubu nga mai ba ha ko to tiringi sem ki bu min du se sem de nga mai bi su ni tengi do nga de tele wang luisem ni gala wang gyur ngen su ni tengi do du se je tanda kande chag do o du se je tanda ni nge pa nge ne 다 땡기거라 단디 신디 개발도 집에다 Toma neban tanda por the young daji dua. Any penangas in a glowing the daji or what those chin mirror like penna, America by Tazina, America in Beta, Indiana in Beta, like for Mambo Dua. Send the caber the Chibeta, Tirin caber the Chibeta. Two chinada, two chin, Chachi and the Dal, the Mambuji, to Jagador. What? Dinani, Lungi, Dati, Tin, Penna Trin, Dati, Trin, Nimachi, caber the Chibeta, Tin Yamanga, that and Gasa. Tagazu, Chick Peggy, Le Sapapo, Sang Yepapo, Croa Campapos in Dadi. They Toma Mevani with Ragi Gingil Jawar Mata Temado. Dan this is the Sejutana Raya came do. That is Jaduala, the Sam Target, Digiti, S. Human Chicky Osejana, Digmar, the Karum Gianni, the Castle Nangadoa. Tuning human Chicky Otter. He do that to Sijutan. Lepa only me lepa yam century, what I think Sejutan is a package. In this Sejutane, Hansan the quality to win, Dunda have a court of the mother, not to London, I think of London, this is the Maya. Sumarwa, Tinturu, that Tomayo Mare Sidugala, any Tomayo Mare Sid, that Nampagi, Tome. Corvala Toma Jaro, Corre Toma Yomare, Jigabri, Jigandin Corana, Tayaman, Tame means the soul. Ta Gaza Chicken wanted Dana, Tametade Yores, Rangi, Korwagi Tametade. Korwagi Tametade Karga, Sangi, Rang Sangi on the Corvala Trovari. Then Jolem Church to me, Ishi to the Corwale. Mika sustaming over Taburis Sundua, the Salam down, then in a passive way. The Tigidi, I cannot do name as Yumarama, then Salana Salvoyore. But that is all. One a chamber. Tindeji, the Hakuna, Kaza Chick on the Chena, Jolam Church to me, Ishi singing a rang in Yamin and Toruja. Didn't Koraki Umara Sidala, Simshu Cage, Redwa. One of the Gachambore, what is it? Better Umbaje or any Kazachi want to Janata, Tamet has the Koret has in Jatuya Korayomari. And Tajazudana Malaya, Tanizet and Jucha down the Tasindi, Tambu, Gazo Pejana, Gazu, Surul Tajiore, then Jubi Tadri. Pajo Tadi, Zepetari, Tadelas, Zet and Jucha down the New York Tadela. Indicala, Tanda, also, Croin Jubi Tade Yomare, Zepet had a pair cover. Kaza chicken wanted to so in Bezina, Zepet Hayore, is a gata.
Died, Taji Ramachere. Somebody can get a year with soon.
What did Kishisuming that? That in number Sangi with that. That may Yomarwa.
Kitchen dog, Kitchen Sumsons, Tawache, Chibujan,
Tajamaji, Tajamaji, Jugidati, Chirubin the Gora, Tomatati, Rabat.
Thank you, say you Ribusons, the Raman and Chiboro.
The Chibara was the Kitchen Sumsigdo, Kitchen Sum.
Raman and Sumas edition.
Aye,
thank you, Raman and Sumas edition.
Alala.
About self or I, or we discussed this before. If you listen to His Holiness teaching, you can find often, how much His Holiness emphasize, in studying and analyzing or finding this, self. We always use this self or mine, and so. And before Buddhism in India, many scholars or practitioners, non-Buddhists, they spend many time on thinking about or trying to find what is self, and we discussed that in the text too. What they call Atma in Hindi, or which means actually self or I, and they have their own interpretation of what self is. So in the text we find prior to Buddhist interpretation of what self is, they define self as having three characteristics. The first one is permanent, that never get destroyed or changed. The second is it's unitary, it's single, it doesn't have any parts. And then third is independent. So with this understanding or definition of Atma or self, so when pre-Buddhist faith or religion, when they look at the consciousness or mind coming from previous life to this life and going into the future, they look at Atma or self, or I don't know, sometimes they translate it as a soul, as something kind of permanent, which it always exists there and never changes, independent. When you look at that interpretation of self from Buddhist point of view, we know that they don't. This actual interpretation kind of contradicts with the Buddhist way of interpretation of what self is, what I is. So from Buddhist point of view, their understanding of self or interpretation is sort of immature, not kind of because if you accept that kind of self, it contradicts the many kind of reality. And so when we look at the Buddhist school of thoughts, we also find different interpretation of what self is. And from lower school, for example, Great Exposition School or Particularist, we find how they consider they also just like non-Buddhist scholars before, they look at the self and try to find and locate where and what self is. So when they investigate, they realize that aggregate is not self, because if aggregate is self, and there are five aggregates, then there will be a fallacies of having five self, which is not not real. There's only one self, and so they couldn't kind of manage to posit another self than aggregate, and so when they analyze, they sort of come to the point where they used, if you remember the word unexpressible self. If you ask them, is the self, does the self has the same nature as the aggregate, they will say it's unable to describe or unexpressible. And when you ask it is same as the consciousness, they basically reply the same way. And then there's another school of particularists or Great Exposition School. They say that self or person is the continuity of the five aggregates. And so there are many different levels of self within Buddhism. But what is important is when you look at the scriptures, you will see different interpretations. And but the important is just use your own kind of experience, your own examination, because we always say that I'm sick today, my mind is not happy, or so when we say this, I'm sick today, it kind of tells that you and something getting sick or ill is kind of two separate things, and it's not both kind of not the way you interpret this two separate things you are talking about, and also same thing with the mind. mind is not happy. So both of these two kind of shows that mind and the body itself is not self or I. Then where is I? You can ask yourself and kind of examine on your own experience. And so then I or self could be kind of could have many different an identity or different for example, there is a I or self which is limited to this lifetime only, starts from the birth ends the dying or passing away. And then there is a I within all of us that is what Buddhists generally interpret as beginningless, but has an end. So when for yourself, there is a I or self or person which is American, but then there's a I, it's a Hoosier or somebody living in Indiana, and then there's a I which is limited to only one day. Then there are different kind of levels of I that you can find upon sort of yourself, and the I which is only limited to today doesn't exist tomorrow. It just finished when today's end. And then the I which beginningless or having end refers to the I which accumulates, which creates karma, and which I which kind of comes back again and again in samsara, and the I or self which eventually attain Buddhahood. That I is beginningless, and so so when we talk about that I which is kind of beginningless, and but has an end, when you listen to His Holiness teaching, His Holiness says that that I is not, we can't sort of pinpoint to clear light mind, innate clear light mind. That couldn't be, it won't be correct to kind of pinpoint to that consciousness and saying that this is the I. His Holiness says that won't be correct. So these are the things that when you come to the class and try to learn, and these are the things that kind of you should be thinking and reflecting upon. So simply kind of reading a text won't be, of course, enough. And so the I or self or person generally, in Buddhist interpretation, like it is mentioned in 400 stanzas book by Aryadev, that I doesn't have a beginning. It's a beginningless. But when we talk about individual person, one person, then we will say that it doesn't have a beginning, but it has an end. So the ending here refers to when you finally achieve enlightenment, that's the end of self or person. So here if you studied or learn Path and Ground text, in that text it's it mentioned about when practitioner attained supreme dharma of the path of preparation. From the 5 paths, path of preparation is the second, and the path of preparation final, the moment of the path of preparation. Once you attain that, the wisdom of supreme dharma becomes. So you don't have to reborn again in samsara. You are free from samsara. So that means the self or I, sort of end. And if we know this kind of, sort of result, then sometimes it is kind of helpful to encourage ourselves. I can sort of end the I-ness or self. So, and within, when the beginning and the ending itself has a different kind of ways to, different ways of interpretation. For example, if you look at the ocean and say, where does ocean start and where does it end? We refers to basically the two, shore of the ocean. We'll say this is the where the ocean, begins, and you go to the other end and say this is where it ends. But for the consciousness, we can do the same thing. It's really kind of difficult precisely to say that this is the way it begins and this is where it ends.
여기 저런 최저 주문이 코로알라 미기의 수담인 거바 독일에 때 문에 고아 섬로 따나 문에 규정이 껴지래도 와서 간데시 규정 두잖아 줄로 최저 주문 이신이 공이 తుం지 떠디요래 냠샤 버리디요 냠샤 뜰 덴토 찌라 통남도 통인 차대 통인 무슨도 또 쳐서 차디요래 통인 무슨도 또 연대 갈라 하기 그리고 자와 정에 나지 말이 버려 뜰은 누구와 자와 말이 그러 그렇게 자와 거 살아서나 그러 개과에 믿어 오늘 규정 좋아
So there is a big reason when we said before that once you achieve the supreme dharma, wisdom of supreme dharma of the path of preparation, you end self or I, cycle of rebirth in samsara, because that is the kind of ending. Or the beginning of achieving of wisdom realizing emptiness. At that moment, although not direct realization of emptiness has attained, but the practitioner has a generic understanding of emptiness, and within the same kind of same period of meditative equipoise, the next moment they achieve direct realizations of emptiness, and when they achieve direct realization of emptiness, that means that they have cut off the root of the self-grasping, or the all ignorances or delusions. So there's no reason to be reborn again in samsara.
어때당 파발레 레 살사 메시아다 강가 성당 수지 잘.
And also, when we say that supreme superior being or arhat or papa doesn't, create new karma, which basically, has the same kind of understanding what we just said before.
So, 다 람기 미 바스베 람 세드 가라르 아주 모टा 로세 람데 모टे 람 लागोरा रिली रोसे लामला रिली लाम जे गरा अनि नम्रु रोसे खालाम सदे मिङ ताल गरा ता साइकी कि सान दुजी कि लाम तला अनि साइकी कि सान दुजी कि अनि पे तोपा खेबर चिन्दला लाम सदे मिङ ताल गरा
So the path, the common meaning, when we talk about path, we look at what what is the destination and how we get to that destination, and it has the same meaning as when we talk about driving. We drive on the road, and when we use a train, there's a train track, and just like flying, there's a plane track. So it's its own kind of specific so when we talk about path, we are basically talking about the same thing. If you adopt that path, that will lead to achieving of ultimate Buddhahood.
인두갈라다 된다왜 람도 또바 쳐버지네 라규레 끼로지 랍고 얼마다 양께 메롱 거지 균이 랍고 말해 인두갈라 람기 미빠 간데 진 미후고네 람디 케발라 미빠 간데 후고네 아니 방자 가래 방구고네 람기 모 간데 있는 데 두신 저거 좀 숨어지.
So when we talk about a path, we are talking about a path that can be generated within our mind stream, if practice. And when talk about path, we know that it kind of talk based on three kind of sections. The first one is what is the the target of that path, and the second, in order to reach that path, what you need to eliminate or object of abandonment, and then the third section is what is the nature of that path. So these are the three components of the path when we learn, about the path.
Oda lamjimi wala rinjikijimida suchuru tang dame tratu sungdwa rinjikijimida suchuru nani ta lungal mita tongwa dame ba sebe tangbo ne lungal sungya dela gyusen chimboya gyuseme tangbo ne lungal mi jinang ngi sungwa mare lungal de ngochoba ina kangle lungal jimi gyu ti 문진 제주당이지라 그래. 인디 동안 당부 숨어 있기 때문에. 그 애니베 문진이 두비나 유대 가야 돈도 따지래. 가야윤 유대 가야윤나 유대 가야기 람데 잡고와. 다 도바케 버지. 수수에 애니베 람덴데 채용 거래. 람덴데 차나 동안 게 중에 랭암바 미게와 랭암바 상행 미게와데 뇽모 차서 뇽모도 라진기 카도 인디 고벨람서 루스티네 숨도 어디 인디 동알 밖에 동알데 키치 로슈주루요래 동알랑 아주 따따 동알 가사 미다바 따반지야 미장와 정왕지 아니 다게 따따 동알라 대완진 딱 오늘로 와. 그러면 자체 예외 레긴 디부지나 맞죠? 이 오늘 그 밖에 상기 최라 내신 년인데 자체 예외 레다 동알 찍기도 와. 자체 예외 레다 동알 찍기도 와. 가르잖아. 그 주신 나지네. 주신기 디부지 인신나 그 매야 잘 걸어. 자네 개와싱인데 배 디부 가제 롱저나 디우 조야메 반진투 버와 인지 직 자메 시긴디 톤람 서브 토버나마도 게와다 자메 ngo로 푸미도 톤람 토마다 자메 게와다가 딩임숭도 어떻게 되게 되게 좀 망보여라 어떻게 되게 공부하지 거래.
And the object of the observation of the path, we talked before about Four Noble Truths and 16 different attributes of Four Noble Truths, four for each Noble Truth, and truth of suffering, path, cessation, and origin of suffering. Within truth of suffering, if you remember, it can be it has four attributes: impermanent, empty, selflessness, and suffering itself. And the Four Noble Truth begins with the truth of suffering, and there is a big reason why Noble Truth start with the truth of suffering. And if you know the suffering, what is suffering, the nature of the suffering, it will help you to lead to lead to finding what is the cause of that suffering, and when you look at the cause or identify what cause is, that will help you to understand whether that cause is something that can be eliminated or not. And if it is something that can be eliminated, then that will further lead to what is the path to eliminate that suffering. And when you adopt the path, you won't be creating negative karma which yield suffering. And when you stop the suffering, what you attain is truth of cessation. So you can see how these Four Noble Truths are connected and related, and also 상대 따가서 가네트
상대 따다들다 콘서트 더 쳐들어. 당 니상만아 당와서 니도 니다발라 따버는 그래서 로슈 주루요. 니다 대지 기지 니다 주루라 로슈 주루요. 로슈 주루도 이거는 가서 냠는지 되죠.
So the 16, attributes of the Four Noble Truth has also kind of directly opposite, 16, what we call mistaken concept, and starting with, perceiving as pure, happy, permanent, because these 16 misconceptions are the things that we ordinary human beings always practice. And so the happiness, that we consider happy is, contaminated happiness. We call it contaminated happiness. And contaminated happiness are actually, if you look kind of with a deeper understanding, contaminated happiness are actually a suffering. It's not happiness. But we always try to strive that contaminated happiness. And contaminated happiness are, the example used for contaminated happiness is, banana tree. You plant it and tree will give a, banana, and then once it gives the result, that's it. The tree doesn't produce the same fruit. So if you need a banana, you have to plant a new tree again. So, it will give only one result. That's it. Contaminated happiness, and the non-contaminated happiness, is like a tree which gives fruit every year without needing a mango tree, without needing to plant a tree again. But that happiness can be achieved only when we attain a part of seeing.
디인디가라다 오늘 상대 따다도 다 지준의 교리였지. 이제는 망망아서 하기 지티가 그런 데지 라가 어디 로슈 주주요. 어디 때문에 로슈 땅도 그런 상담나 아주 둥알 덴비 로슈데 둥알 미타 동화와 당가서 레와 자체도 지 둥알 딱 오니 제나 둥알 레디 요래데 맞아 대완진 거라 텔라 대완진 아니다 때 용민도 오니 뭐에 좀 미다바래데 맞아 디니시기 말에 나니시기 말에 시대 빠빠게 시도에 바게 따로 때 맹간라이나 다동 때 셈나나 다야기로 마도 시야기 신루그를 삼삼 남자데 레기미도 다티게 맞아 가르쳐 쳐줘야라 시다게 바게 봉삽 첨부서 구하래 가져에 두어지 소소에네 베 윤제베왕이 치와대야 이거 충충이 공부해야 되기도 아니 그 중요 갈라 아니 베 라트는 디지 치와대야 그 유견생아 마임바 랑투지기 유타가 랑기 아니 베 깨지긴 이바데 다강랑 돈도 유견생 구해미도 인디가 깨지마 세베 미다바 타모데 사모다야 대 이부 중무 충부 이분 딩디 사모다야 된데 어떻게 또 진이 사모다이나 오늘 남는데 중대 나 순샤게데 람린다 봐 냠lenle jar tuyaji umudo az 어떻게 공부하지 버렸어 대랑게 tu빈데 기동와 다음에 타무인라 다 다음에 타라니 취기 단진 취기 다음에 타라니 어다티도 랑님이 바래 어다 선잠벨라 우주준진 도마지지 랑게 팅이 도바다 우주도준 참마지진기 그베 동화팅이 취기 다음에 차려 어다 되게디 랑님이 바 차려레스
You said we did a teaching before about 16 aspects of Four Noble Truth, and they're kind of opposite. I said before, the opposite or mistaken are the ones that we always practice in our life. For example, in reality, although something is suffering, but we always look as and interpret as happy, good thing. And also, same thing with impermanent. Although our life is so impermanent, fragile, unstable, but we always look as if it's permanent. We always stay forever, even when we are almost at the time of dying or in hospital. There's always expectation, always kind of seeing as kind of staying forever, not dying. And these are kind of feeling that we sort of innately possess within ourselves, instead of having kind of the impermanence of. And when these are the understanding that you can learn from Tenets and then apply or use in the study of Lamrim stages of path. So this when we look at the stages of path, small scope person has the understanding of the impermanence based on the ending of something, kind of continuation. If something continued, if something exists, something cease to exist continually, the small person ability is they know that this is impermanent, because this doesn't exist anymore. But it's really kind of rough, gross understanding, and based on the impermanence and their understanding, we also know a kind of different scope of person and how they understand the impermanence. And the impermanence itself, although we have a feeling that something change or destroy or become something different because of factors and conditions, but in fact the factors and conditions that change or that made that thing impermanent exist within that entity itself. From the very first moment of that existence of that object, the nature of the impermanence exists with that object itself. So to change or that object or thing, you don't need any other external factors or conditions. Just coming into existence as a thing or phenomenon or object, it comes with that nature of changing. And then for the self, chukdamana person with tara news.
Chukidame tala try chukidame tara nija wore chukidame ni yores zuzun sama jingi jube tongwa te da zuzun to be jinji rang ting to ba tongwa te ni ani chukidame
senza bello
la
ya ma lo sha yin chi
lo sha de tara ni yores songjan ni
selflessness of phenomena. It has a two type, and Kajal said what he has been saying until now is sort of reviewing what we covered before.
What I Nibalamgi Pangzadela Nundita Shitigni is Numo Bentibada Shitigibani, the Lamgi Pangzare, Pangwade. In around Samadanda, Tandina Nundi la Karajambu, Numo la Karajambu. Tingasu Karachikibu, Pangi the way Tangu Lingibu. Nico, you know, as a chair the Tan, moving Nizu Dingi, Karitatan, Ratan the Tunibu, Landi Gule Kaji Rendu, Rangasamtango, Chati.
Objects abandoned by the paths, it's on page 272. 272, the objects abandoned by path are afflictive obstructions and obstructions to objects of knowledge. And you can kind of again apply this understanding on your experiences. What are the objects that needs to be abundant when you are on the path, and are you does this apply? Is this applicable to your practice? You try to abandon something. Is that same as what's mentioned in the text? So these are the things that you can analyze by based on your own experiences.
다 네가는 저마다 너나 말해. 그래. 디퍼도 통하잖아. 다 되서요. 자셔.
So we'll take a break then.